Hello and welcome back to Unleashing the Baseball Mindset. We have Dr. Kyle Stull here, Coach Dylan Gautreaux, Coach Chris Pike, and this is our post-Thanksgiving podcast. So hope everybody had a wonderful time with their family and got to eat a whole lot. My particular eating strategy this year was to just eat pie all day, and I can admit, no real Thanksgiving food. I feel a little bit better, but I might have diabetes. But I kind of feel like it's a trade-off. The trade-off I was willing to take. How was y'all's Thanksgiving holiday? Get to spend time with family?
Yeah, man, mine was great. Thanksgiving's kind of my deal. I'm a cook, enjoy cooking. We've been for the past, let's say month leading up to it, constant phone calls from my family, my wife's family. What can we bring? What can we do? And nothing. Chris is cooking everything. I don't want help. I want to cook it all. I got it. I enjoy doing it. Yesterday worked out particularly well because we ate around 1 o'clock. And I proceeded to get on the couch, and I woke up an hour and a half later and everybody was gone. I said, "Where's everybody?" My wife said, "They left. You ran them out." Well, that's good. I said, "Well, we need to pick up the food." She said, they took it all home with them. So wonderful. This worked out great. They left me a piece of apple pie.
Great. Dylan, how about you? How's your family doing?
Great, man. I've been in Louisiana since Sunday, trying to take a little bit of a break and a breather from baseball, and it hasn't been that at all. I've had calls every day, text messages every day. But yeah, I mean, it's been so much food. Even leading into, like, it wasn't just Thanksgiving, man. Ever since I got here, we've just been eating the whole time. Obviously my sister and my brother-in-law, they love to cook, so they've been taking care of me. I've been taking naps. It's been pretty awesome. I actually fell asleep yesterday. I woke up feeling real like nauseous and just like hungover from all the food that I've been eating. I went to bed. I actually took a nap, or I was supposed to take a nap from 11, and I woke up at 3, and pretty much everybody was gone. Kind of the same situation as Chris, but we still had a lot of food in the house. So then I ate Thanksgiving at around 3 and just kept eating through the night. So I have food hangover. As y'all know, I don't drink at all, so I've got a serious food hangover.
I've never heard of that. But you've always been kind of a foodie.
Yep.
It seems like you like
Yep.
food.
Well, and when I come here, man, I overindulge,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
what we do here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
My wife and I would talk, as we get older, have these talks about, trying to lose weight and, just be healthier. And I said, well, if we really want to make a commitment to that, we have to move out of Louisiana.
That's true.
I mean, the food, it's just too good here.
It's 100%. That is factual for sure.
Super. Ours was about the same, but I have a 6-year-old that prevents any type of nap taking.
Yeah.
We were out. We watched a little bit of the Cowboys game, and then we're outside running plays. And he's so active. So it's still nice, but got to stay busy. All right, let's move on to today's topic. So today we have 5 different topics that Dylan put together, and we'll go over these. I'll present them all individually, and then we'll go back in and talk through them. So the first one is. And these are primarily to parents. And Dylan, as I go through these, if there's anything, if you want to add a little bit more context as I read them off, you can, or we can just go back to it. But it's top 5 rules to a successful season, and this would be something you would want to share with the athletes' parents. And number 1 is, if you can't be positive, be quiet. Number 2 is, let your kid own their baseball experience. I really like that one. Number 3, never discuss playing time during a tournament or a game. That's something I'm a little bit unfamiliar with, so we'll get into that. Number 4, trust the process you signed up for. I love that one as well. And then number 5 is, be the parent they want to look at after a tough game. I also love that one as well. And Dylan, I'm sure both of you have quite a bit of experience with that one. But going back up to number 1, so if you can't be positive, be quiet. And then a little bit here was if your kids are already dealing with expectation, nerves, and pressure, don't add it from the fence. So let's jump into that one a little bit and have some suggestions for parents too, the ways they can kind of handle that some.
Yeah, so the one that you didn't understand, the playing time, that's like, you're not talking about like, oh, you only played 2 innings this game. Oh, you only played 1 inning this game. Like, not talking about it with the coaches and it's a lot of these kids have to do more work to earn more playing time.
And it goes like that. I mean, again, my son is brand new to the sport really, and there's not enough kids for them to not play. So they might sit out 1 or 2 innings, but for the most part, everybody's rotated in
Yeah.
a good bit.
Yeah, so you're gonna have kids at 10U, 11U, 12U that don't play as much as others. I mean, especially, if you're playing rec ball, it's different, but when you're playing club baseball, you have bracket play. I mean, you have pool play on Saturday, bracket play on Sunday. So a lot of times you're going to see pool play on Sunday. Crap. Bracket play on Sunday, your best kids are going to play.
Yeah, I think it's different too. Like Dylan's saying, it's different, not just what you're playing, but it can be different team to team. I'll say, on the team that we coached for 7 years, we didn't really dial it up on the playing time side, honestly, until we were going back. We've talked about this many times on this show. We never put an emphasis on winning. It was always purely developmental. And from a developmental standpoint, did we have kids at 9 that were better than others? Absolutely. But our goal remaining of trying to prepare these kids for high school baseball, we don't know what these kids are going to be when they're 16, 17, 18. By the time they're 9, we have no idea. Your worst player at 9 might end up, in many cases, being the best high school player that came off of that team. And so we never really wanted to limit their playing time. We honestly, we lost bracket games on a Sunday without our best lineup in because it wasn't our focus. We were trying to make these kids better and trying to develop all of them for high school, period, end of story. So yeah, I mean, on the playing times, you're right, Dylan. But I think it kind of depends on the coaches, honestly. That was our approach anyway. Just diving into taking that into the positivity side of, be positive. I think it's important for coaches and parents. Maybe coaches have a little more insight into this, because presumably they played the game. But I think that all of us as parents, and remember, I'm a parent too, we lose sight of just how difficult the game of baseball is. It's an incredibly difficult game to play. Mentally, physically, there's just so many dynamics here that make it very difficult. And you're going to have many, many moments where you don't have success. That's part of the beauty of the game. I don't think we realize that how aware the kids are of that. They know that they're struggling. Why do we as parents have to tell them everything that they did wrong? They know what they did wrong, especially if they have a good coach. That coach has different ways of communicating these things to them without just being negative. It was a big realization that I had to come to as a dad who had just coached the games, is that my kid, that ride home doesn't need to be more coaching. He just experienced it. He knows what he did wrong, and I am not doing any good by, hammering it into him on the ride home either. None whatsoever. So I think you just always have to keep in mind as a parent and a coach, again, it's a very difficult game. You should expect those failures as a coach, and just teach them how to deal with it. You're not going to prevent it. I think we focus on trying to eliminate the mistakes. Well, you're not going to. They're going to make the mistakes. They need to make the mistakes. That's how they learn from it. So let's equip them on how to deal with that, how to get punched in the face and get off the mat. Why do we focus too much on avoiding getting punched in the face? You're not going to do that. You're going to get punched. Learn how to deal with it. That's the better strategy, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of times on that, for me personally, I've gone through a big, I guess, change in direction in the way that I've coached in the past 2 seasons. I had a close friend of mine and my dad both kind of make me aware of my body language during a game. So at one point, I was one of those coaches that yelled and screamed at the kids, not like anything rude, but trying to correct them during a game and being too vocal during a game versus just letting them play the sport. And so I pivoted from that to, coaching more at practice and letting them play the game. And then during the games, these two people, my dad and a friend, noticed that like my body language whenever the kids would make an error or they would do something stupid, like a mental error, whatever, my body language and, like putting my head down or just being like, different things like that. So I've had to be very aware and be present in the moment during the games to understand that these kids, like you said, man, they're looking for our validation all the time. They're looking at us after they make an error, after they strike out. So we have to make sure that we stay positive and that we stay encouraging during these games, because a lot of times they're looking straight to us. You do have those kids that look at their parents, but like at 12U now, I'm seeing more and more of these kids looking at us. So I have had to make, a lot of adjustments and then being present and knowing what I'm doing during these games so that, they're not looking at me and I'm throwing my hands up or I'm, taking my hat off and going like this, and that's tough for me because I'm a very emotional person. So I think, that speaks to me as much as it does to, being a parent in the stands. And it's something that's helped me a lot too is, my younger son, Brock, he's now playing with another team. I'm not coaching him anymore. I'm just coaching my you. And being a parent in the stands this past season was very eye-opening for me because I want to coach, and that's what I want to do and that's what I do. But I've had to just sit there in the stands and take things and really see it from a parent perspective. It's hard, man. It's very hard.
That the whole looking to the parents for emotional responses, and I know we all know this, but that starts as an infant. As an infant, things happen, and kids immediately look to us to see how they should respond. So I think sometimes think about that to where that's ingrained to find your parent or find someone like a coach and see how they're responding for me to know how I'm supposed to respond. So it is so incredibly important just to try to hide or mask those emotions. Body language is probably more potent than the things you say too. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And I know one other thing we've talked about is, I've thought a lot about, well, why do parents act this way? Why do parents coach from the fence? Why do they do that? And I really think it's because we don't like to see our kids sad. And so I want you to be as successful as possible, even though I know failure early on is going to be the most beneficial thing for you. So you just learn how to work through it. But I think that's the hard part is, me as a, just a parent, I don't like it whenever he strikes out. I don't like it whenever he gets out at first base, just because I know it makes him a little sad. But then and that's kind of why I want to coach him and tell him run a little bit harder, do this. But we have to control that and just like both of you said, just let it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, and it's hard. I mean, and this is where I think dad coaches are probably the biggest example of people that probably do it wrong. We don't stop when the game's over. We still have that our son still has to ride home with us, and I know I did it. I know we all do it. And it's wrong. It's bad. Just be the dad on the way home. Don't be the coach. Again, it's very hard. Having the emotions that we have as parents is not wrong. You just have to be the bigger person and keep, not say some of the things you want to say. We had a kid, quick little anecdote, kid, I don't know how old we were, not 10, 11 maybe. This kid had 8 different bats. He was on a string of strikeouts, right? And so his dad was willing to do anything in the world, to help him. You want a new bat? Fine, we'll get you a new bat. You want hidden lessons? We'll do that. Anything that this kid thought he needed, the dad would do. Well, it was continuing still. And I can remember after a game, they were young, the kid was crying in between games. And I went up to him and I said, what's wrong, buddy? And his dad had told him that if he strikes out again, he's taking all of his bats away from him. And I'm like, and he didn't mean it literally, but he did say that. And, that kid couldn't process that. I think we need to learn to appreciate those mistakes, those failures, whatever you want to call them. Those are teachable moments. Those are coachable moments. There's a beauty in that moment that kid did not succeed. teach them, coach them. We do it in life as parents. It's the same thing on a baseball field. These are teachable moments. Just embrace that and kind of stay out of their butt a little bit. They know that they're succeeding. They're trying to do something that's very hard. They know that they're not succeeding. Just let it be.
There's this NFL player. This is a recent quote, and he said that the two hardest things in life are number one, hitting a baseball, and number two, keeping a woman happy long term. I think he's probably right about that.
I would, although I've been married for a long time, I would take my chances hitting a baseball. I'm better at that.
Yeah. And I think it's such an important point too that you brought up, Chris, about the kids. The kids already know what they did wrong, right? Even if they don't know the technical skill or maybe what it is. Even my son, a strikeout's a strikeout, even though if he doesn't know why. He doesn't need me to say anything else about it. But then I think that gets into this idea of positivity. Like we don't live in I wonder if parents think this, from a sports psychology perspective. I have a view of it, but you know, I, we don't live in some fairy tale world where everything's nice and positive. However, in these moments as parents, we should kind of try to create that fairy tale positivity to where we find something to be positive about. Strong swing, good stance. I mean, anything. I don't really know. But what do y'all think about that, right? Like being positive all the time. Well, it's not really realistic, but we need to try to be. Do you agree with that or what?
Yeah, I think it's something to strive for, always be positive. I mean, are as adults and parents, are we going to succeed in that? No, we're not. I mean, we will make mistakes too, but I definitely think that that's a good thing to aim for is to stay positive. Let me say this along the same lines. I had a parent. This was a great perspective that I think a lot of us don't consider this. And it changed my perspective on these mistakes and failures and positivity was in our case, look, all of our team are, they all go to private schools. They are all well taken care of. These kids have everything in life that they need. We're all great parents. Okay. Our kids don't struggle because we don't allow them to. Okay. And in the realm of baseball, this parent told me, he said, number one, I'm not going to apologize for paving the way for my kid, in life and sending him to a good school and all these things that we do as parents to make it easier on our kid than we had it. I'm not going to apologize for that. He said, but what I will do is if the baseball field is the only place in life that he struggles, then that's okay. Let him struggle, because in perspective, he still has it pretty good. If the only struggle my kid is going to have in life is on a baseball field, does it really matter? Let him struggle. It's fine. And that perspective allowed me as a parent to, like I said, enjoy the moment. Even if there wasn't the success that I wanted for my kid, it's okay. The struggle is good too.
Yeah.
Just let him have it. And it allows you to stay positive. You're not going down that negative road of trying to erase these mistakes. Let him struggle. It's fine.
Yeah. I agree 100%, man. I'm the same way. I mean, it's our kids don't have to struggle in any other aspect of life. Like all three of my kids have been blessed with my wife's brains, so they don't struggle in school at all. And we've built a good life for them. And I agree, man. There's no apology for that. I don't want my kids to have to, struggle for food or struggle for clothes or anything like that. And I want them to have a better life than I do. But man, that's kind of the main goal of our fall season was to make these kids struggle on the baseball field. It was our first season playing all majors, and I tell you what, man, they struggled. They had some failures, but that's where they're getting it, right? And that parent, Chris, I mean, dead on, man. That's my kids go to private schools. It's that's where they're going to struggle, and they need that so much. They need it.
They do. And so, we're talking about being positive after the fact. If we're to this point, we're saying, okay, the struggle is good, then we, listen to what we're saying as parents, then don't be negative.
Yeah.
You've put them out there in a very, very difficult game. Deion Sanders said the hardest thing he's ever done in his life is hit a baseball. You take a round bat, a round ball, but you got to hit it square. Tell me how you do that.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. Okay. And we appreciate the difficulty. We as parents, they agree with what we're saying, Dylan. The struggle is good for them. Okay. Well, then if all that's true, then why are we negative after the fact?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
I'll say one thing about the kids, because I have two on each end of the spectrum. So I was 21 whenever my daughter was born, and she did not have an easy life. She did not go, and it wasn't like she had a horrible life, right? She was loved and taken care of, but she bounced around from school. She struggled in education. It was not a private school. It was not, it wasn't easy for her. And now she's 23. She works hard. She pays all of her own bills. She has her own apartment. She's entirely independent. We maybe help out with the phone and like insurance, but I think about that. Like, I think her resilience was built because she didn't have that stuff growing up. And she played some sports here and there. But then now my son, totally different. Private school, has everything, has way too much. I mean, he's 6 and he has a freaking gas powered Jeep. And it's just way too spoiled. But I'm curious
I
to
think
see.
you
He
wanted that
does.
gas powered Jeep.
I did. That we don't have to talk about that part though. I did want
Actually,
it, but
that's a perfect segue. But go ahead.
I am curious. That is something I worry about with him. Is let's see how this goes as he grows up. Fortunately, my wife is wonderful, right? So I think she creates opportunities for him to learn the difficulties of life other than just through baseball. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Now, this next one here is, I like this one too. It's, letting your kid own their baseball experience, which I think this is something a lot of parents struggle with too. So you had your childhood. This one belongs to them. Don't live through them. Don't coach over the coaches, and don't hijack their joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's one that I struggle with, man. I don't know about you, Chris, but we both left baseball in a kind of a rough way, I guess, let's say, and I regret a lot of the things that I did in college, and I still fight with it till this day. And it is very tough for me not to live only through my son, but through the other kids on the team too. Because I sometimes I want it more than they want it, and I have done a very good job. I will pat myself on the back as far as keeping it inside, but I still want to play through them, let's say. I still want to make them do certain things, right? I don't, because I know it's wrong. I've had extensive conversations with my dad about this because, as y'all know, my dad was like right by my side growing up and always taking me outside and working with me and all that. So this being a different day and age, like we've talked about with the video games and things like that, is, I've done a good job in letting them play their own game. But I always I struggle in my head. Like, I want to just grab Brock because Brock's a natural athlete. Brock is, man, he's one that doesn't have to work as hard as, let's say, Maxwell does. And I think it's because of, like we've talked about before, because of environmental. He's just watched Max do everything, and he's at all Max's practices, and he learns through that visual. He's a visual learner, and he picks up so much, so he doesn't have to work as hard. And I want to just grab him sometimes and say, hey, let's go out in the garage, let's work on this. But if he doesn't want it, I'm not going to make him do it, right? But I want to.
Yeah, I mean, look, let me say this. I think there's a distinction between living, an important one, between living through your kids versus just wanting your kids to do better than you did. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I saw a quote recently that said a man, a dad, is the only person in the world that truly wants their kids to succeed more than they did. And I don't think that phenomenon should be defined as living through your kids.
Yeah.
I don't live through my kids. I played in college. So what's the next level? Professional? I personally don't feel like, I needed to make that level. I should have made that level or even wanted to. And I don't feel like I'm pushing my son, to do something that I didn't. I am pushing my son to be the best version of himself, whatever that is, whether high school or whatever is the highest level he plays, great. I mean, as long as that's the best version of him, so are there parents, and let's be honest, it's the dads by and large, not the moms, that want to live through their kids. I think there are some that definitely do that in the wrong ways, but I think if you really dialed in on it, it's probably more of what I'm saying, that we just want our kids to do better than we did, not to satisfy ourselves, but just that we want that for our kids, and goes for the whole team. I mean, I consider every kid I've coached my own son.
Yeah.
I'm as close to most of them as I am my own son, and so wanting that for them too. It's not to fulfill anything for me. It's just that I want that for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I go back to all these points kind of tied together too, right? Of the wanting our kids to do better than we did, but also not have the same struggles that we did, but then also needing to realize, well, my struggles are why I'm here today. And Dylan, I know you and I have talked about this too, and I try to encourage people to not regret things that happened in the past and to just think that maybe that stuff happened, and I 100% believe this, that stuff happened in your baseball career or whatever because the Lord wanted you here today doing what you're doing. And so as hard as, that might not be a perspective you take, or a lot of times perspective people don't take, but just trying to convince yourself that, and just kind of realizing that, well, those struggles, the things that I might regret, well, that needed to happen. That needed to happen to make me the person I am. And while I don't want my son to have to do that, he needs that. He's going to have to, and just like we've talked about the failure, right? He's going to have to struggle. He's going to have to, whatever, make dumb decisions. And,
Yeah.
hopefully he doesn't knock up a stripper in college. But other than that,
No, look, it's true. And I mean, I really think I know we already said it, but it's such a good perspective to view this game of baseball. I've always said it's such a game of life. And as parents, forget about baseball for a moment. We're constantly teaching our kids things through our own experiences, the right way to do thing, the wrong way to do thing, whatever. Just appreciate the beauty of what this game is, that they're going to have those struggles. They're going to learn so much about life through this game. And honestly, as a parent, I don't really have to parent that. The game is parenting them. So, I think you solve a lot of problems that we talk about on the parenting side if you just allow the game, like Dylan's point here, let the kid own their game. It's a beautiful thing. It's helping us parent, to be honest with you.
what do y'all think about, and this is kind of number one and number two, and Dylan, this is a parent you had talked about that you had on one of your teams, that he had a really good guy, really wanted the best, but he had a really tough time controlling his emotions. In those situations, if somebody can't, would you prefer they just don't go to the game? And how do you think how would the kid handle that?
Well, the kid handled it really well because he didn't go to some game. But I tell you what, man, the clinic that we had helped him a lot.
Did it? Good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he got more out of it than anybody there.
Yeah.
And
I know he wanted to. I know he really wanted to do better. He realized the negative impact. So
yeah. Yeah, Chris, this was a dad very emotional dad, and he knows how good his kid is. And he tried so hard to not yell things out to his son. At one point, he was a coach. Great, like Kyle said, great dad, great guy, cares about, this guy would go up to all the kids after the game, give them hugs, just a great guy. But he was just so damn hard on his own son. And, we had several talks, and I knew he was trying hard. I just didn't know what the fix was, like it was just one of those things that he just couldn't control. So what he started doing was he would go and sit in his truck during practice, or on a Sunday, he just wouldn't come to the games. And I know that could be probably the hardest thing as a parent you could do, because he loves his son. This is a guy that he's a family man, loves his son, loves his family. And so last season, he just wouldn't show up on a Sunday, and his kid would be a different kid. Well, then we had the clinic about, the mental performance of baseball. And this guy was more in tune than anybody there, including the kids, myself. This guy was just taking it all in, right? So this fall season, as you know, we played way too many tournaments. We played 9 tournaments in the fall. He was great. I mean, you may have heard 2 things out of him the whole season. And his son, who we could only now he's a lefty. He's got an incredible sweeper. Like he can throw, right? He never had longevity because as soon as he would walk somebody, he would look at his dad and he can tell his dad was upset. You know, it was either body language or his dad would say something and he would shut down. So he was like our 2-inning guy. Like we would start him on a Sunday. He would shut everybody down until he walked one kid, then we would have to pull him. And this season, he had 2 complete games, and he probably had 3 or 4 games where he threw, let's say, 3 or 4 innings. So, I mean, just a complete turnaround for the dad. The kid did better. I mean, it was great. Would I rather them not be there? I don't think so, man. I think they just need to learn, and he did. And honestly, man, like I can't sing this guy's praises like high enough. I mean, I think that he did such a great job in controlling, you know, his frustration or his, you know, whatever you want to call it. He did such a great job this past season. He's learned so much. And I contributed a lot, Kyle, to the clinic and to him really wanting to get better. Like he wants to be a better father. And it's just been so cool to see.
Yeah. So to Kyle's question, would it be better for them to never be there? No. Not absolutely not. I don't think a parent should ever miss a game. As a coach, there are parents that I wish weren't there, but most of them. But their kid needs that parent there, especially the dad. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
The reality is these boys. We're talking about baseballs. This is a boy thing, right? The boys need their dads there. Bottom line. Similar story, Dylan, except I won't sing the guy's praises. He made no effort to be a better person, but we did a good job of managing it. So we picked up this kid. He got on our team. I think 11U was his first year with us. Played with us for 3 years, but 11U was the first year. His dad was the coach prior to that. This kid, I mean, I love him. I love this kid so much. If any of my parents are watching, they'll know exactly who I'm talking about, dad and kid. But he was a whipped dog when he came on our team, a whipped dog. They wanted him to pitch. He wanted to pitch. He was accustomed to going in, walking 2 batters and getting pulled out of the game and probably yelled at. I didn't watch any of the way his dad coached him, but it was pretty obvious in a lot of respects. You know, we allowed that kid to struggle when he first started pitching. Of course, we have Durbin as our head coach, but also pitching coach. Kid, he started off, he was struggling a little bit through 2 or 3 hitters, and he would look over at the dugout, and Chad would look back at him like, "Get the next guy. I'm not pulling you out. No, keep battling." And let me tell you, the kid made tremendous progress of learning how to battle. He, came to us as, like I said, a whipped dog, but flourished. Okay. Now, the dad made no effort to be better, but Chad was able to do a very good job managing this. I can remember a game, that 11U year, where he did get pulled off the mound. Okay. Not after 2 or 3 hitters, but at whatever point, I don't remember. He gets pulled out. We make a pitch and change. He goes back to the dugout, and we see the dad making a beeline from the stands to the back of the dugout. And Chad walking off of the field now, right? Because he had just made a pitch and change. Halfway off the field, points to the dad, and I don't remember his exact words, but it was, "Hey, absolutely not. Go back to the stands." And I'll never forget, the dad was like, "Okay," and he did. He turned around and went back to the stands. And it was, of course, look, I mean, Dylan, Chad. Chad's able to do that, right? I mean, people did not challenge him near as much as they would me, but he did a good job. I think that the reason that this kid did so well and flourished is not because the dad tried to be better, but because Chad did a very good job of managing the kid, but also managing that parent, right? So as coaches, we can't always rely on the parent to change or do the right thing or do what we want. We just have to figure out a way to manage that parent too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if we tried to go to this dad and say, "You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that," I mean, we weren't going to change him. I can promise you.
Yeah.
That if we're if we're okay moving on down to number 4, because I feel like that goes right into this number 4, which is trust the process you signed up for. And I know we've talked quite a bit, about Chad and his way of coaching, and I think you too, Chris, or I think both of you, right? Like this, it is this idea, like all of this is a process, right? A process of developing the youth athlete, developing them as a person. And so this number 4, trust the process you signed up for. You pick the team, the coaches, and the culture, support it publicly, and if you need to question it privately. But let's talk about a little bit more about trusting the process, and definitely from the perspective of the parents, or so parents understand what can you do as coaches to let them know there is a process, whatever it might be, and then encouraging them to just stick with it. And I don't know if I'm wording that question very well. It might be terrible, but
Yeah. So
I mean, what can you do? Go ahead. Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah. So just because I was thinking about this on the drive over here about something that Kaye said. Remember when he talked about if they don't win, they just kind of shut down because there's next weekend, right? To get another ring, right? We were talking about playing every weekend, you just got, it doesn't matter if you win or lose because you got next weekend, right? And when we were younger, you don't win, then you go home and then you go play basketball, you play something else, and then you got to wait till next season, right? So I was thinking about this on the way over here is like, there's got to be a way to get the kids and the parents, not only the parents, but the kids especially, to understand, like, listen, you got to be present in the moment and you got to trust. And that goes to like trusting the process. You've got to trust the process that we're in this tournament today for a reason. And we're here to win this weekend. And if one game doesn't go how we want it to go, that doesn't mean we shut down. That means we keep playing and we try to win this tournament. And I think this whole, like Chad was talking about, this whole like playing every weekend thing has got to stop. And that's part of my new process is like, we're not playing 15 tournaments in the spring and the summer, playing every weekend anymore. I want these kids to be present in the moment and want to win that weekend and want to play that weekend. And again, it's not all about winning, but it's all about finishing the process that we started for that weekend and not just looking at it as, oh, well, we're not playing well this weekend, so next weekend we can win a ring. And that's something that I wanted to talk about today is that like, that's a change that I'm making immediately is like, we're not playing every weekend. We're not doing that anymore because I think that's a disservice to the kids. And with the parents and trusting in the process, I think doing it that way and explaining to them at the beginning of the season, here's what the process is. We're going out there and we're practicing to play in tournaments. And then when we play in tournaments, we're going to try to win that tournament. We may not have another tournament for 2 or 3 weeks. We're going in to win that tournament. And I think that's been a big problem in the past, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years, especially in DFW, is that kids are playing every single weekend. I can't tell you how many Facebook posts on these baseball groups that I'm seeing right now. My kid's available this Saturday and Sunday, December, 12th and 13th. They're playing in December. Like it went from playing till September, October, November. Now we're playing into December. So to me, trusting in the process has got to be like, we've got to teach these kids how to play for the moment, not play just for the rings or play like, it's no big deal if we lose this one we got next weekend. So that's kind of my tangent that I was thinking on the way over here.
Let me jump in. I'll make it quick. Kyle, I know we got to bounce here, but so, when I think of the process, I guess here's how I would answer it. Yes, trust the process. There is a process. As a coach, if I had it to do over again, I would say, here's my process. You either trust it or don't be a part of it. Okay. I'm going to go find players and parents that buy into the process. I'm not changing my process. This, I know where you're going to end up or where this process is headed. You either trust it or you can't be part of this. The mistake I made was allowing the parents a voice in the process and questioning myself and pivoting to, I don't know why. Was I trying to appease them? I guess on some level. Yeah, I was. It was a huge mistake. If it were totally had been up to Chad, no, he wouldn't have deviated from the process. You're just not going to be a part of it. When our team started at 7U, Chad was also coaching his older son, who they were 12U, I believe, at that time, and they were good. I think they were AAA team. They weren't majors. I'm gonna tell you that whole team. When we were 7, they were 12. They all just graduated high school this last year. They're all in their freshman year of college. In high school, more than half of that team was among the best high school players in Baton Rouge. Several of them are playing their first year of college this year. And so Chad had a process with that team. And at 12 years old, maybe some of those parents didn't see it. They weren't even majors, they're AAA and they're losing some or whatever. But let me tell you what, fast forward 6 years and every one of those kids was at the top of their class in high school baseball. So, that's my answer on the process. Yeah, I'll tell you what the process is. You should trust it. If you don't, I'll give you Dylan's number. You can go play for him maybe, but you're not going to play for me. This is my process. You know what I mean?
And I'm good. I'm good on time, by the way.
Okay, good. Good.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I like that too, Chris. Of like, once you go through that, and maybe as Dylan keeps coaching, as the kids keep getting older and stuff. But whenever you can say, like, look, this is what we did with our 12U team, and there's a high percentage of them playing college ball, so this is what the process we're going to stick with. I think that gives you a lot of weight. Kind of like Chad, like Durbin had kind of carried a lot of weight because of his experience and stuff as well. So I really like that. And Dylan, to your point, when you talk about being in the moment, like so much of that aligns with what is taught in sports psychology if you're dealing with performance anxiety and that type of stuff, of being in the moment. And in the baseball, heads up baseball 2.0, that guy just keeps talking about pitch by pitch, pitch by pitch. All we're going to do is be in the moment, one pitch at a time, not thinking about the end of the inning, not thinking about the end of the game, not thinking about the end of the tournament. And I think, that's the right approach for anything performance related, is because you can only perform in the moment. So yes, why not coach and teach that? Like, let's be right here in the moment, because this is the only point in time that we can influence. And teaching that, like the way you're saying, Dylan, I think is a great way to really start to establish that, is that's what everybody starts to focus on. Is just what's happening right now.
I'm sitting here thinking too on this process thing, and again, my kid now in high school, and I'm not coaching, and I'm thinking about why is it so different in high school? All of these things that we talk about with parents and these problems and blah blah. Why do they just magically disappear in high school? And here's a big part of the answer. This is what we were just talking about. Those high school coaches, listen, they chose a different career path than I did or Dylan did. But in terms of on a baseball field, I mean, we accomplished as much as a lot of them. I mean, there's certainly guys that did more than what we did. But we know the game the same way they do. Okay, they have a process also. They don't. What I was just saying, you're either going to trust my process or you can't be part of it. That I think that's really their attitude too. I mean, you could pull your kid out of school, certainly, but that doesn't happen the same way you're going to quit my team and go, play on Dylan's team because he's different or better or whatever. So I think that these high school coaches, they don't even tell you their process. But I mean, if you want to know it, I'm sure they would tell you. But that's what it is, and they're not changing. Period. If you don't like it, well, I mean, he can stay in school here and sit on the bench, I guess, or you can send him to a different school. But yeah, it's kind of the same thing on this process thing. I'm seeing it in real time with the transition to high school and why it's such a better coach player relationship, and the parent is very much removed from that relationship. And I think that's why. I think as youth coaches, because we're parents too, our kids on the team, we're in it. We just allow them too much latitude a lot of times. Or at least I did. Anyway, we can move on.
I mean, you've said many times, Chris, that your goal is to prepare them for high school. So do you ever talk to parents about that? Of like, once they get to high school, like, your opinion's not going to matter. So your job as their coach now is to consider their opinion less. So that way, when everybody gets to high school, the parents aren't in shock because they don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly tell them that. I mean, we were very. I've said it here a bunch, but I also said it a lot over the years. Is that was my goal? What they do, whether they develop more in high school to the point where they can go play college. That's up to their high school. It's up to them, the player, but it's also up to their high school coach. If they make it to college and they want to go beyond that, well, that's also up to them as a player and their college coach. I'm not part of that. I just think, again, I think it goes back to the coaches, and I know I feel this way so strongly because I did it all the wrong ways of allowing the parents to question the process and allowing them to voice that to me and me trying to massage it. And it's a terrible idea. I don't recommend it. And high school coaches, from what I can tell, don't do that. They don't do what I did. No, this is the process. If you don't like it, too bad. I don't know that it matters what you tell them.
I know. They usually think as parents, we think we're different, right? Like, I know this parent's probably difficult, but I'm going to go talk to the coach because I know I'm not going to be difficult. I'm just going to tell him what needs to happen.
It's funny. I think I've said this before. The best parents are the ones that played this game. You generally don't have issues with those guys. They would agree with everything that I mean, I could pull any one of my parents, numerous parents that never coached a day in their life, but they played this game at somewhat of a high level. And they're going to agree. They're going to have the same opinions and perspective as we do, So our perspective does come from coaching, but it primarily comes from having played this game. You know what I mean?
Dylan, unless you have something to add, I'd like to roll into this last one here, which is be the parent they want to look at after a tough game. And I think I wonder more from a practical. So what's some practical advice? What can a parent actively do to be this parent? And I'm thinking of, like, we live really close to the ball field, so it's like a 6-minute drive home. So it's pretty easy for us to just be quiet. But let's say you've got like an hour and a half drive home and the parent doesn't really like that much silence. What are some conversations a parent could have with the kid after a tough game that would be beneficial?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. I turn the music on and I ask them what we're eating. I mean, I don't talk baseball with my kids until they bring it up. Usually with Maxwell, it'll be when we get home, he'll usually say, how did I do? How did I do this weekend? Or how did I do today? And I'll give him my feedback. I usually start off with all the things that he did right. And if there's, errors that he made, he knows, like Chris always says, he knows, if he wants feedback on how to fix that certain thing, which usually he doesn't, because he already knows that. He already knows what he needs to do. If he booted a backhand play, he's going to take some more backhands. I don't feel like parents need to talk about the games unless the kids bring it up, and they want to talk about it. For me, it's always, what do y'all want to eat? We typically just turn the music on and we talk about what we want to eat. But my kids know that I'm not going to talk to them about baseball on the ride home. I'm going to let it sit for a while. Max is kind of the same way. He's in the same mindset as he likes to let it sit, versus Brock will ask me right away a lot of times, how I thought he did. And Brock's 9. He's playing 11U. He's playing at a high level. They play AAA majors at 11U. He plays a high level, and he's keeping up with them boys. So for him, I generally say you did great, bro. And that's it. Like, I don't get into plays. I don't get into stuff like that. Now, the coaches will at the practice. Brock has great coaches now. I did the same thing when I was coaching Brock, because he always wanted feedback right after. And whatever he did well, I would tell him what he did well. And if there was mistakes, I wouldn't even bring it up at that point. I think parents need to decide where they're going to eat after the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Listen, I mean, I got a lot to say on this. One of the things that we always taught, I think I've mentioned it here before, was, Chad would always tell these kids, a bad play, a mistake, a physical error. It was like going to the bathroom. And what do you do when you go to the bathroom? You flush it, right? Just flush it. It's over.
Well, my kids don't.
So how can we teach kids?
My kids don't flush. So
I got you. Well, but how can we teach kids on one hand that they need to flush it and move on, but an hour and a half later in the car ride home, we're going to pound it back into them? I mean, how do you expect a kid to understand that and be able to deal with that? You can't. So I completely agree with you, Dylan. Like, where are we going to eat after the game? I think there was a study done on coaches specifically as when they got older and they said, what's the one thing you wanted, your dad or your coach to do differently? And the answer was, after the game, I just wanted him to be my dad, not my coach. And that's hard. I mean, like, I could choke up saying that because I know that there were times where I was also a coach on the way home, and that's so bad. I feel so bad for doing that to my kid. Um, I think Dylan's spot on. The same dad that I talked about earlier that bought all the bats and told him he was going to take them away from him if he struck out again. So now that dad made a lot of progress. Okay. Fast forward a couple of years at the 12U, kid still striking out a lot, pretty consistently. The kid wanted to quit. I can remember at a practice, I was nose to nose with him. I was crying, the kid was crying, and I was just begging him, just don't quit. I know you're struggling. You're doing really well in the outfield. We need you there. He's a good center fielder. The hitting's going to come. Just don't quit. Well, to the kid's credit, he didn't quit. He came back for 13, had a great year. The dad also did well. Here's what the dad said. The dad told me, he said, I quit caring whether he struck out. I don't care anymore. Go up there and strike out 100 times. It doesn't matter. The only message, I never rode home with him, so I don't, but I'll take the dad at his word. What he said, he started telling the kid could go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. Get in the car, and the dad would say, man, I had fun watching you today. That was good. I'm proud of you. What's the one thing, I bet if you asked, again, this is very much of a dad-son phenomenon. What does a son, Kyle, you probably know this answer better than any of us, but what's the one thing that a son wants out of their dad, coach or not? I think they want to make their dad proud, right? Like, that's the one where it's a powerful word. They want their dad to be proud of them. Period. End of story. That kid is so fulfilled, I think, if their dad is proud of them. Okay. So why not, after the game, take your coaching hat off? For us that are coaches, you're not a coach anymore. The game's over. You're a dad driving your kid home. All dads, after the game, just tell them you're proud of them. And that's it, man. Why does it have to be more than that? I'm proud. I had fun watching you. Where do you want to go eat? And you'd be amazed at how much growth and development I think you'll see out of your kid. Even if you don't really believe that, if it wasn't fun and you're not really that proud of it, I mean, we are proud. I know we're all proud of our kids, but even if you're really not, you have to make yourself say that, because that's what's gonna improve everything, And I think that this dad and son that I'm talking about, I think that's a part of the reason that this kid came back at 13 and really he hit the ball very well, because his dad decided he was only gonna tell him, man, that was fun. I loved watching you. I'm proud of you. That's it. That was the only message. And what happened? The kid, I don't think it was a coincidence that the kid started hitting the ball well, So it's just what we have to do. Like you said, we'll tackle it. If you have good coaches, you make a mistake in the game. We're coaching during the game, right? All these coachable moments happen. I have to coach it right away. And maybe we touch on things or we work on things next week at practice too. There's no good that's coming out of that car ride home. None.
Yeah. I did find something here, kind of what you had mentioned. There was a study published in 2005, and I didn't have time to read the whole thing, obviously, here, but two things that it kind of mentions here that I find interesting is that parents perceived that if they shared their true emotions with their kids, that they would be able to relate to them better. So they know the kid is sad, so if they shared like their negative reactions to the game, that maybe they could sort of bond with them better. And another one here, since they thought they had some sort of a knowledge and expertise of the game, that they should share some of that knowledge with their kid. But fully agree there that, I mean, that's
No,
the thing. I think
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's
Oh,
going
that's
to
fine.
happen organically. It's like Dylan just said, let the kid bring it up. I've told this example this past fall. I'm not coaching, I'm sitting in the stands. My kid had a great fall. The last game, he didn't do so well. He had he hit the ball really well all fall. Last game, he didn't hit well. Couldn't see the ball, wasn't seeing the ball well. Just, struck out a couple times. Just didn't do well. He did get to pitch the last inning or two, and pitched really well. So he comes out of the dugout after the game is over. My wife and daughter are already in the car. I'm waiting for him, and he comes out of the dugout and he has a look on his face like of terror. I've said this before. And, I didn't know what I was going to say. I mean, the old me probably was going to start coaching him about why he didn't hit the ball. But all I told him was, man, you pitched really well. That was fun to watch. And we walked to the car and we get about 10 miles down the road and then he brought up the hitting. It was a much better conversation. So you're talking about these chances to bond with your son. It's what Dylan said. Let them bring it up.
Yeah.
It's a much more productive conversation. You're bonding. No, I feel like maybe now my son knows I've got his back. I'm on his side. All these things that I do tell him because I want him to do better. They receive it better, I think. Let them bring it up. Yeah.
And with my son being 6, he rarely brings up baseball, but I always, like, when we get in the truck, I always just tell him, buddy, I'm so proud of how hard you worked out there.
Yeah.
And that's usually it. And then we just go home and
Now,
get on
let
YouTube.
me add this. I do have a rule. We had a rule on our team, and my son certainly knows this. The one thing that I will get there's 2 things, right, in baseball and in life that you can control: attitude and effort, right? So that same game when he pitched well, and I didn't want to talk about his hitting. He did have an inning where they were at bat, rollover of inning, and he kind of he didn't walk, but he did kind of jog out to his position. And I said to him, you pitch really well, all that good stuff. But I did say, let me tell you one thing. No, I know what it was. Sorry. He hit a foul ball down the right field line. It was foul. It was foul by a few feet, but he stayed in the box when he hit it. And I said, let me tell you, if you ever do that again, I'm going to come on the field and probably drag you off of it. Run the ball out. That's effort. You can control that. I don't care that you hit it foul. I don't care that at bat ended up in a strikeout. But when you hit the ball off the bat, unless it goes straight behind you out of play, I want you running down the line. And so he knows that. I don't think we should ever back off as parents on attitude and effort. We should back off of the physical errors and mistakes that you're going to make in baseball. Yeah, leave that alone. But attitude and effort, no, I don't really have any wiggle room there as a parent. Anyway, that doesn't lead into anything. I just wanted to say that.
Super. Dylan, anything else? Yeah. I don't know if any of y'all ever read of Viktor Frankl. Anybody ever read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning? So he was in Auschwitz, the concentration camp. And he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and in that book, one of the things he said is that he believes one of the man's last act of free will or last free will is being able to choose their attitude in any situation. Now, of course, thinking about a Nazi concentration camp is a little bit different than on the baseball field, but it's something that kind of like goes across a lot of different experiences. That's the one choice we have, is to be able to control our attitude. And I think teaching that at a young age is very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of our consistent topics that we taught over the years. There's 90, if there's 100 things about baseball, there's way more than that. But let's say if there's 100, 98 of them you have no control over. You swing that bat, you hit the ball, you have no control over where it's going, okay? You have no control over whether that shortstop's going to field it, whether he's going to make a good throw, whether the first baseman's going to catch it, but you can control how hard you run down the line. You can control whether you hang your head because you got out or not. And so, yeah, it's just, like I said, one of those things it's a consistent lesson that needs to remain for sure. Same thing with the parents. I mean, hey, we'll talk about attitudes. That's what we've been talking about, right? With parents. Parents can control their attitudes. We're more equipped as adults to control our attitude than this 10-year-old is. I mean, if a 10-year-old has a mental breakdown, I mean, I kind of get it a little bit. They're 10. They don't know how to process these emotions. We should know how. So when we're negative towards the coaching or towards our kid because he got struck out. I mean, that's terrible. Why can we not control that?
Cool. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. That was a good episode. I think we covered some good information. Perfect. All right, guys. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah.
Good weekend, and we'll chat with you soon.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
All right, you bet. Bye.